So we've got Jay Styron from North Carolina. He is with the North Carolina Shellfish Growers Association. And so Skid, instead of making a panel come up, we've got some other folks in association. Skid is with East Coast Shellfish Growers. Leslie, you're with, is it the Cedar Key Aquaculture Association? Is Frank in the room? If he's not, he will be shortly. Is there anybody else with the Growers Association? All right, because what we're going to do is Jay's going to talk a little bit about his experiences, but then we're hoping just to get some feedback about, because the title of the talk is the importance of growers associations. And I guess I'll let you have some time. Just to be clear, Oyster South, one thing we tried to steer clear from is being a growers association. That's partly because I like Skid and we didn't want to start an organization that was going to compete for members. But Oyster South is not supposed to be lobbying. It's supposed to really be education and connecting the dots, getting growers together with chefs. But there is obviously a role for growers associations, and I'll hand it over to Jim.
Thank you, Bill. Julie, for putting on this event. It's a great event. Thank you for doing that for us. And I apologize, I didn't do a PowerPoint because this talk is a little boring, and we're going to have a panel discussion afterwards anyway. So I'll make this short and sweet. Basically, the importance of associations. First off, I believe one of the most important things is the interpersonal connections you can make within an association. Because there's no situation or problem you're going to have on your farm that most likely somebody else hasn't already had. So being able to know growers around you, in your area, in your region, to be able to reach out through an association, through the association website, Facebook page, that's just, you can't pay for that kind of knowledge. Somebody else's mistake may cost them a lot of money, but it will save you a lot. So definitely key in on that as much as possible. Another thing, regional. We've got states all around us because we are new to this, relatively speaking, from North Carolina South. So North Carolina's been in it, building up slowly for about 10 years now. South Carolina's just getting in it, Georgia, other states. So state to state, there's a lot of things our southern states have in common. Biofouling issues, different types of gear that work well down here that may not work in the Northeast. So being able to go state to state and reach out from one state association to the other one. Again, it's knowledge, it's interpersonal knowledge that's going to drive this industry. It's just a great resource to be out there for everybody. If you can, get on other states' websites, Facebook pages, make friends with them at these events, talk to each other. Because again, there's a lot of things that have already happened to people that they can help you with on your farm if you're just starting it or you have a problem. So just reach out to each other. And one of the other necessary evils is government relations. And Skid probably knows this better than others because he's dealing with the federal end a lot more. But as state organizations, I've been to our state capitol and worn a suit more times than I ever thought I was ever going to have to. But that is the type of thing you have to do. And so when you go to talk to your regulators, your legislators, having to be able to say that you have an association behind you, you have people that have vested interests, that are paying dues, and support this. That is a big thing. Legislators want to know the people that are being affected. They also want to know how much money these people are going to be bringing in. So all that ammunition helps you when you go to talk to these people, because ultimately they are responsible for a lot of our success or failure. And if you can get a legislator or two to listen to you, be sympathetic to our cause. After being in Raleigh as much as I have in our state capitol, I actually have some legislators calling me now when new bills are issued or thought about to see if they make sense for our industry, which is great. It's great to know about a bill before it comes out, and then after the fact and have to play catch up and get it changed in the next session. So be prepared to be involved in your association if at all possible, because it's nice to know you've got a board of directors, president, vice president and stuff, but they need backup at times to go to these events, put faces with names, do events for your politicians, have a little meet and greet with a dozen of your growers, their product, and your coastal legislators. Go to the state capitol, make the effort to go to them. but have your association behind you. And to do that, you're going to need money. And that is one of the bigger problems. I'm the president, as Bill said, of our association. It's like herding cats to be president of an association, or filling a truck full of bullfrogs, because people like to be parts of associations, but to actually do the work of an association, you end up getting about 5 to 10% of your number doing actual work. So be prepared to help out. It's not a lot of work, but it's important work. Because your government relations, as I said, is probably going to be one of our biggest factors moving on. In our state, which is probably a lot of the southern states too, there's a lot of other user groups in our water that claim that they own the water as much or more than we do. We're going to need legislative help to curb those types of things. So that's at your state level. And then we take it up a notch to what SKID does for us as the East Coast Shellfish Growers Association up in DC. We're going for the Hill Walk in a couple of weeks, I believe, to be able to talk to legislators in DC on the federal level. That's a whole nother level, but be prepared for that kind of thing, because that affects us broadly. The FDA, that affects everybody no matter what state you're in. We're all going to be under that. So just be prepared again to be able to help out with that. Be prepared to be able to pay for this. Our organization is about 15 years old. I think it started out at $15 a year. You would think I was going to steal their firstborn when I mentioned going up to $25 a year. I had people say there's people going to leave because they're not going to pay $25 a year. And there's people that left because they didn't want to pay $25 a year. So be prepared to pay for it. I mean, as the adage goes, you get what you pay for. And doing these events takes money. And it takes money for gas to go to your state capital, to go to events. It takes time out of your business to do this. It's a sacrifice, so just be prepared to step up, because the more people in your association helps out with this and the heavy lifting, the better off y'all going to be. And I'll turn it over to Bill, and I guess we'll go to the
I'll have some other folks contribute here. I would say as an extension agent, I'm sure there are other extension agents in the room. It's not unusual that a politician calls and wants to know, well, what are the industries what issues are the industry facing, or what's their opinion about this? That is a really uncomfortable place for an extension agent to be. I do not want to speak for the industry. I try to be that interface. And if I start lobbying for something, I don't know about, that is a very difficult place to be. The other option is to send them to a single grower. Well, typically the politician, if they're getting harassed by one grower, their first thought is that that grower is asking them this for their personal gain. That's why they're in their office, for personal gain. And so for me, being able to have an association that you can point people to, so that Jay isn't speaking for Carolina Mariculture, he's speaking for the North Carolina Shellfish Growers Association, and that's just a very different dynamic. And so, if you don't have that association in your state, I think you need to think about that. Jay, for you guys, what has been the single, the best output, the best deliverable you guys have had in North Carolina?
Well, we have had regulations in place that were put in place over 100 years ago. And it was predominantly put in place for bottom wild harvest. And our Department of Marine Fisheries was basically putting us into that box for all rules and regulations. We had to adhere to a lot of the same things that a wild harvester would, size limits, times, things like that. And we knew it wouldn't work. So we were able to go to our capital, talk to our legislators, and actually explain to them why this was not changing. Because we had talked to our regulators, and there was only so few of us at that point in time that, well, you're so small, we don't really have to pay attention to you, nothing's going to happen. Once the legislators got wind of it, we explained our situation, they told the regulators, we want this changed. And so now we're slowly going through our rules and regulations that have been in place for 100 years and making them fit what we're doing today.
I'll go to Soup, and then Frank, I was going to call on you to talk a little bit about what South Carolina, what you see as the biggest accomplishment or the biggest challenge that you all have. And Soup, go ahead. No, okay. You want this or?
No. Our biggest accomplishment is summer harvest. It's been 98 years since we had summer harvest. And now that we got new techniques, new technologies for oystering, summer harvest is now doable. We still don't touch the wild oysters during the summertime, just like you don't want to eat. Remember, our oysters are intertidal. They're actually picked by hand at low tide. So during the summertime, they get hot. They get up to 98 degrees. It's just like leaving mayonnaise on a picnic table in August. You really don't want to eat that 3 or 4 hours later. But with this new techniques of oyster grow or continuously submerged mariculture, it's doable. We did a study with FDA, and the Vibrio risks were minimal, and we had a successful summer harvest this past year. So that's a big deal. You just went from a part-time guy or gal to a full-time worker, because now it's 365, and we're growing a great product, and the demand was incredible. I was surprised at how high the demand was. A typical person in South Carolina, I'm not eating those during the summertime, but they ate them by the thousands.
Thank you. You know, I don't know, Leslie or not, I don't know, or Soup actually, go ahead.
I've been Secretary Treasurer of the Louisiana Oyster Dealers and Growers Association since 1985. And I don't want to repeat what everyone else has said, it's all true. It's membership and involvement is extremely important. But an association can play a very unique role, especially when it's working in concert with a state agency or state organization. And to give you an example, we have the Louisiana Oyster Task Force, which has membership of industry and state regulators. And much of the work that the task force does, how they spend their money, it comes from tag sales. Many years ago, an additional 5 cents on every oyster tag got added to their sales, and that supports the task force. It generates about $100,000 a year roughly for task force things to do. But they're not allowed to spend money on booze. So a lot of times when you go to meetings, much can be done at the social hour. So an association can play that role and cover the tab at the social hour. It's true. It's perfectly legal. And so, you know, although your state agencies and your task force are doing the very best they can to represent you, their hands are tied when it comes to certain things on how they can and cannot spend the money, because it's public money. But your trade association is a private organization, and based on their board of directors' decisions on how their money gets spent, they can spend money on anything they want, all within law, of course. So that's just one aspect I wanted to point out to you, that they have a very unique role sometimes.
Thanks. So, you know, the other, I just noticed that the other ones are putting organizations together, maybe skid. You know, I find that often these are reactive, that you don't have a reason for you don't know that you need an association until it was a little bit too late. And then you're scrambling to put together an association. I don't know have you got any thoughts about how to motivate an association before the sky is falling?
Well, I mean, when I started in Rhode Island, they didn't want agriculture at all. And I formed an association of one. Because no one would listen to me, but the Ocean State Agriculture Association had a certain good sound to it. And I put out a little newsletter and sent it up to everybody in the State House and about every quarter. And suddenly one of the senators caught her eye, and she wanted to become the agriculture advocate, and we rewrote the laws in Rhode Island. And as soon as we did that, it ushered in 30% annual growth, which is a wonderful line. And when you see that line of production and jobs and economic development, everybody suddenly changes their mind about our industry. So, I mean, you do have a different pipeline, a different reception if you're an association versus an individual. And yeah, now the regulators come to us all the time and say, well, what do you think about this? Which is a wonderful place to be, rather than saying, oh, we did this, I hope you're okay with it.
Because they need the political cover, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, I think they finally recognize that we're a big enough industry and there's enough jobs involved. You know, we've got 170 acres under lease and $6 million of production, and that's 200 farms and several hundred jobs. And that gives you enough clout that they care.
Well, thank you guys, thank you Jay, thank you everyone who spoke up. I just really want you, if you haven't thought about an association, if you're not part of that in your state, then I want you to think about it. I want you to approach some of the folks here and get some input.